All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are digging into the philosophy of biology, and we're going to tackle a massive question. How does the living world actually hang together? It's this question that has kept thinkers up at night for centuries, and we're about to see how modern biology gives us some really profound and honestly pretty surprising answers. You know, the philosopher Wilfrid Sellars once said this, and it just perfectly nails what philosophy is all about. It's this grand attempt to build an overall picture of the world and figure out where we fit into it. Super ambitious, for sure, but that's the whole point. So if that's the job of philosophy, then you can think of biology as one of its most powerful tools. It gives us a framework, a special lens for seeing how the messy, chaotic, beautiful world of living things is all structured and connected. Okay, let's kick things off with probably the most famous picture of life's organization you've ever seen, Darwin's incredible idea of the tree of life. I mean, this single image has fundamentally shaped how we think about evolution for more than 100 years. And this is way more than just a nice metaphor. Darwin gave this tree a real historical meaning. He was saying that species aren't these fixed, separate things. No, they split off from parent species, creating this vast, branching network of relatedness that stretches back through time, connecting literally everything that has ever lived. But what happens when we start to really poke at this picture? I mean, what even is a leaf, an individual organism, on this tree? And what about the seeds that make them, the genes? Are these ideas as solid and straightforward as they seem? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. First up, we're going to question the most basic unit of all, the individual. And trust me, this gets weird fast. So, picture this. You're standing in a massive forest of quaking aspen trees. You see thousands of them. But what you don't see is that underground, they are all connected. They all sprouted from a single ancient root system. So, is that one individual organism? Or is it thousands? Suddenly, our intuition just completely falls apart. Now, to get a handle on this puzzle, biologists came up with some new language. The entire grove, that whole root system, is called one genet. That's the single genetic individual. Each tree that you actually see is called a ramit, just one module of that individual. So the simple question, how many trees are there, completely depends on what you mean. And that's crucial because it totally changes how we think about life strategies and ecosystems. And if you thought that was weird, check this out. The biologist Daniel Jansen once said that a field of dandelions could be seen as one single scattered individual, basically a giant tree whose parts are spread all over your lawn. The whole idea of an individual isn't a hard fact of reality. It's a flexible tool we use to understand it. Okay, so the individual is a bit fuzzy. Let's zoom in even deeper. What about the genes, the things that are supposed to be the instruction manual for that individual? You know, the concept of a gene wasn't just discovered overnight. It's had this whole evolution of its own. It started out as just an abstract factor in Mendel's experiments with pea plants. It actually took almost a full century of work for it to become what we think of it as today, a physical piece of DNA on a chromosome. And this new physical view of the gene led to an incredibly powerful metaphor, most famously put into words by Richard Dawkins. The idea is that genes are the real stars of the show, the true units of selection, and we're just their survival machines. It's a really compelling, if a little grim, picture of genes as the ultimate programmers of all life. But this is where philosophy helps us slow down and unpack what we really mean by cause. Think about it like this. A gene can be a difference maker, like the specific words printed on a newspaper are what make you believe something new. But a gene can also be a producer, a necessary background condition, like the oxygen in the air that you need to be able to read the paper at all. They're both causes, but they're doing very different jobs. And that's the whole point, right? This shows us that the gene as programmer view, as powerful as it is, just isn't the whole story. Oxygen is absolutely essential for you to read, but it doesn't write the article. In the same way, genes are essential for building you, but that doesn't make them the sole authors of your life. Okay, so if individuals are fuzzy and genes aren't simple programmers, how on earth does biology make sense of how creatures behave? Well, it builds models. It creates these simplified little worlds to try and figure out the rules of the game. And the most famous model is the prisoner's dilemma. Imagine two partners in crime get caught. They're held in separate rooms, and they each have to decide, do I cooperate with my partner and stay silent, or do I defect and snitch on them? This simple little grid reveals a huge problem for the evolution of cooperation. It asks a really basic question. Why would anyone ever cooperate when betrayal seems to get you a bigger prize? And here's the paradox that makes it so interesting. From a purely selfish point of view, defecting is always the rational move. No matter what your partner does, you're better off snitching. But if you both act rationally and snitch, you both end up way worse off than if you'd both just stayed quiet. This models the deep tension that evolution has had to solve over and over again. So to clarify who's actually playing this game, the philosopher David Hull made this brilliant distinction. He said there are replicators, those are the things that actually get copied from one generation to the next, like genes, and then there are interactors. Those are the things that actually face the environment, like organisms or even whole groups. It's the interactor's success or failure that decides which replicators get to go on. This clears up the picture so much. The game of survival is played by interactors, but the score is kept by the replicators. All right, we've taken apart the individual, the gene, and the game of evolution. Now let's put all those pieces back together and see what kind of bigger, more dynamic picture of life starts to emerge. So, the biologist Richard Lewontin said that the standard view of evolution basically sees organisms as puppets. He showed this with a simple set of equations. Here, O is the organism and E is the environment. The organism's state in the next moment, that's OT plus 1, depends on its current state and the environment. But look at the second equation. The environment in the next moment, ET plus 1, changes all on its own. The organism has no say in it. But then, Lewontin proposed a much richer view. Look closely. Now, the environment in the next moment is also a function of the organism. This is huge. Beavers build dams. Earthworms completely change the soil. We are changing the atmosphere. Organisms aren't just adapting to a world that's handed to them, they are actively building their own evolutionary worlds. It's a process we now call niche construction. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, we've seen that biology isn't just a science of fact collecting, it's a science of model building. Its most basic concepts, like individual, are flexible tools. And maybe most importantly, life isn't just passively reacting to the world, it is actively constructing and transforming it. And it's philosophy that helps us step back and really appreciate this deep message coming from science. And this really shows that philosophy and science aren't these two separate things. You can think of science as the powerful lens we use to see the world, but philosophy is what helps us focus that lens, to ask what all that data is really telling us about how everything hangs together. Which leaves us with one last thought. We've seen how biology gives us this incredibly deep, dynamic story about what life is. But is that the final answer, the complete picture? Or is it one amazing, absolutely essential chapter in that never-ending philosophical quest to understand how things, in the broadest possible sense, truly hang together?